Your Creative Push, episode 328.
And by God, do not let anything stand in your way. Do not let anything come in the way of you and your purpose, you and your mission.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Andrew Tischler. Andrew is a realist painter from New Zealand who has been a professional artist for the past 15 years. And he also has a YouTube channel with over 120,000 subscribers where he shares his painting knowledge with people around the world. And he comes on the show today to share how he grew up in the United States, but then moved to Australia and the beautiful New Zealand, but how there is beauty everywhere. And it's just about having the eyes to see it. Andrew talks about dealing with introversion and how his wife has allowed him to accept himself and to also flourish into what he needs to be. Andrew also discusses the way in which we distract ourselves from the things that we're supposed to be focused on because we are all here for a purpose or a calling and we need to be focused on those things. Andrew also talks about how he makes it as an artist, how he gets past some of his resistances, the importance of writing down goals in all aspects of your life and referring back to them every single day, and also his issues with anger in the past and how he has conquered that as of late. And finally, Andrew discusses the ways in which that we distract ourselves with goals that aren't aligned with the things that we actually need, and how he flags certain aspects of his life, like the news and also negativity, as distractions, so that he can get back on his mission of being an artist. Andrew and I went very deep into a lot of topics. He's a guy that is totally dialed in, and I promise you that you're going to be inspired by our conversation. And I already made him promise to come back on because we could have gone for probably 6 hours if we had tried. So please sit back and be inspired by my guest today, Andrew Tischler. Andrew, welcome to Your Creative Push, man.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thanks for being here. One of my listeners, as I told you before, reached out to me and put me on to you, said that you'd probably make a great guest. And I've been checking out your stuff. You just started a podcast and you have, you've been an artist for over 14 years now. You're an amazing artist. And you also have these wonderful instructional videos and kind of informative videos on your YouTube channel. I love what you're doing. I think you're like the perfect guest for this podcast. So I'm really stoked to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Any excuse to just share more of this with people out there, I would jump at it.
Yes, my man. I always like to give my guests the opportunity at the start of the show to give a brief overview, sort of how you got to the point you are today in your life and in your creative life.
Sure. Well, forgive me if I ramble on a bit, but, it does say on my website, I've been a professional artist for the last 14 years, probably going on 15 now. And that's just been my professional life. But when I think about it, it really started much earlier on than that, probably from the word dot. I never have a memory without a pencil or a paintbrush in my hand. And it was really beneficial growing up in the house that I did. My father was a professional artist, and it was always something that was encouraged. It's something that saddens me a lot nowadays when I hear from people who get in touch with me online. They're not growing up in a supportive household, or at least their friends or their environment at school is not conducive to creativity. And it really, something I really feel for them, But I've been very lucky. So my creative journey started when I was very, very young. And I just threw myself into painting and drawing nature. I was really big into animals and dinosaurs and all that cool stuff that little boys are into. And I was just always drawing. And I was kind of a weird introverted kid. I didn't have a lot of friends ever. And I just kind of wanted to sit by myself and draw my pictures. And from there, I started getting a bit of attention, especially from a young age. I was just known as that kid that drew. That had a particular kind of gravity to it that I could carry into my young adulthood and then on into, my university days and into my career. But I've just had my head down, and I've just been doing this since professionally since I was 21 years old. I grew up. A lot of people comment on my YouTube channel. They're like, "Where are you from?" And then there'll be this comment thread going where people are trying to guess where I'm from. But I think they know by now. I was born in the United States, born in Texas, and I moved to New Zealand when I was 6 years old with my family and work. When my dad remarried, he remarried a zoo veterinarian, and her job postings around the world meant that we picked up and moved wherever she had a job. So I had 4 wonderful years in Wellington, New Zealand, from the age of 6 till 10. And then at 10 years old, we moved to Perth, Western Australia, where I spent pretty much the from 10 onwards until only very recently moving back to New Zealand. I married a New Zealander about 7 years ago, been together about 10 years. So it was a great excuse to come back to this country about a year and a half ago. And now we live in the South Island. And now this is where I continue to create my paintings and my videos for YouTube.
Very cool. You reached your home base.
Well, I do feel really at home here. New Zealand is a wonderful country. The people are amazing. I think some of them get it, but you do get the feeling that a lot of them don't really understand just how good they've got it, like how beautiful this place is. And, the fact that it's such a small country, I think is fantastic, because you do get this feeling that everybody knows each other. In the town where I live now, everybody really does know each other. There's only about 485 people here. So it's pretty cool.
It is cool. And I just love how you take every opportunity on your YouTube channel, as you should, to show everybody the beauty of New Zealand. I was watching this one video. I think you're doing plein air painting, and you're like, you know what? Somebody complained about my 10-second intro the other day, but you know what? Guess what? This one, I don't know how long it was. It was like 2 minutes, but it was beautifully shot. And I think that's so important, though, for people to be proud of where they're from and to show what's around you, because so often we just kind of are going about our daily life and stuck inside and not really enjoying what's around us. Even people that are living in places that aren't that beautiful, you know what I mean? There's so much beauty that can be found around you. So I think it's great that you kind of take that into your own hands and you kind of show off.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but on that video where I think it did end up being nearly like 2.5-3 minutes long, that intro. It was just my opportunity to troll a troll,
yes,
and just do it creatively, and But that was a load of fun. Since moving here, I've made several great friends that are also into painting and are around my age as well, and so we're starting to put together a nice little group of buddies, that go out painting. So it's a great excuse to do that. But you mentioned something else there that I find really interesting, because I get emailed all the time by people who they're searching for this epic scene or this epic landscape. For me, it's relatively easy to find in the South Island of New Zealand. I mean, it's one of the most spectacular locations on the planet. But there, as you say, I mean, there is beauty everywhere, and it's a matter of just having the eyes to see it. So if you can see the beauty in a smile, the beauty in somebody's face, the beauty in the way sunlight will hit a little bit of a weed that's growing out of a crack in the sidewalk, there is beauty absolutely everywhere. We don't necessarily need these big epic mountains. But for me, it was just, fortune, luck, a blessing from above. I don't know how you put it, that I ended up in this country. But I still try to take that opportunity to keep my eyes open and look everywhere, and even in places where it might not be so obvious, because you never know when beauty is going to strike.
Right. You said something really important there too. It's like finding the beauty in everything, not just like landscapes or, the typical things that people say are beautiful. Finding, beauty in a weed growing out of the sidewalk. I think it's so important for people to remember that, especially if you're a creative person that has the ability to kind of bring that out, or to share your own unique spin on your view of the world. And it's like once you start to see the world that way and practice seeing the world that way and trying to express yourself in that way, it's like building muscles to see the world in this profound way that I think is really our purpose as human beings, is to see the world in this way and to share that unique view. So the more you can practice that, the more you'll see it.
Absolutely. There's a documentary that I really love on YouTube, and it's by this guy Roger Scruton, who's an English philosopher and writer. And the documentary is called Why Beauty Matters. And in this doco, there's this one section where he's talking about a painting, and I'm probably butchering this, and I even forgot the name of the artist because you just reminded me of it. One of the Impressionists, I believe, but was painting just his bed sheets, crumpled bed sheets. Woke up, rolled out of bed in the morning, they're just laying there on the bed, crumpled. And anybody looking at that in a real life situation would just pass it by, wouldn't actually see the intricacies and the folds of the fabric, the way the light hits each individual, fold, and the masterful rendering of that image. And all it is sweat-soaked, stained bed sheets. It's kind of gross when you think about it, but he painted it in such a way that it really commands that attention. And I think that's our role as artists, as creative people, is to take something and to show somebody else and say, hey, look, this is worthy of some contemplation here. This is worthy of a little bit of admiration. Check out the beauty in this. I'm a beauty guy. I really, I'm really obsessed with it, but it's interesting where you find it. It's really, that almost sounds weird. Like I'm saying I'm a beautiful guy. You know what I mean?
Hey, you're a very handsome man, Andrew, I must say.
Oh, shucks. It's a good thing this isn't video recorded, because you'll see I'm going bright red right now.
We'll both be proven wrong. No. No. So I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned that you, from a young age, were somewhat of an introvert and kind of always by yourself as like the artist kid. Does that still apply? Like, has that lasted?
Oh yeah. No. Look, when I think about it as well, I don't know that. It's weird. I kind of balance, oscillate between the two. Like, am I an introvert by choice, or am I forced into this position? Because I remember when I was young, it really used to bother me. It's like, why can't I make friends? Why am I so awkward? Why am I so weird? And it wasn't until later, and I do still have my moments now, but it wasn't until later that I embraced that weirdness. But it's something that did help my creativity, whether it was, by choice or not, forcing myself or being forced into a situation where I'm on my own, left to my own devices. That's something that I think allowed me to put so much time into this. And I think anybody out there that wants to get better at their art or develop a career in art, that's the biggest asset that you've got is time. You better learn how to spend it wisely, But, the social thing really is something I still struggle with, and I always have. I probably always will.
Right. Yeah. It's important to realize if you're an extrovert or introvert, and to go with it, and to not fight against it, to realize that you get your energy from however you get it, whether it's people or alone time, and give it justice, to give yourself that alone time then, and don't force yourself into crazy situations where you're not going to be like your best self, to really just listen to your body, and listen to your mind, and do you, you know what I mean?
I agree 100%. Absolutely. I'll never forget. My father told me when I was very young, he said, Andrew, I have time in my life for two things, my art and my family. And he kept to his word, that's where he put his time. And on that list, there wasn't friends. There wasn't a social thing going on. And I don't know if he was like me. He probably is a bit like me, but I do know just how hard he worked, and he was making art and trying to make it as an artist. He ended up doing very, very well for himself, but that's all he did. He did that so he could support his family. And I guess some of that rubbed off on me. Absolutely. Some of that ethic, definitely. But I did when I was younger, back in my 20s, especially, even in a high school before that, try to force myself into situations where I was trying to conform to something that didn't agree with my particular temperament. And every time I did that, every time I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, I got bitten. I've now, the older that I get, the more I'm still not there, but the more I feel I'm able to accept myself and accept how I operate. And I must say that the love of my wife is something that actually really does help me accept myself and who I am. And she's incredibly encouraging, just saying, giving me the space and the ability to be able to flourish and be who I need to be. And she's realized as well with YouTube, with all this stuff online, and with the demand that's on my time, just how important this is to me. And having somebody that allows that freedom in my life is just extraordinary. I don't know how I could do this without that kind of support. Otherwise, I would probably be on my own, just doing my thing, if that makes sense. But
Right.
I really think to make it, especially to do what I want to do. I mean, because I'm big into goals. Maybe we can talk a bit about that. But to achieve some of these goals that I have, I found out long ago that I really had to make some sacrifices. I really had to work out what are those things in my life that I can do without. And I'm not saying that socializing or friends is bad at all. Far from it. I've got a handful of really dear friends, but the socializing that I do with them now is because I don't live in my town and I'm in a different country, is I'll jump on Skype with them or on my phone and I'll have a brush in my hand or they'll be doing whatever they're doing and we'll talk for hours, and I'll be working while I'm talking to them. So that's my way to kind of stay connected with people. But the hours that I keep here in the studio, they don't really allow for me going to the bar to hang out. I don't drink anyway, but or catching up for coffee. I don't do that. I'm here in the studio working, and every Friday night we're right next door. The studio now is right next door to a bar in the town where we live. Every Friday and Saturday night I hear them carrying on, and I'm just in here at night painting my pictures while there's a party going on next door. It's kind of funny.
Does that kind of give you more motivation too, to like kind of have that dichotomy, like right across the wall, right over the wall? There's, people that are perhaps maybe not taking their life as seriously, or, of course there's like a time for fun and play, but there's
Sure.
also time to get serious, and there's sacrifices that need to be made. And I think we will get into that with talking about goal setting. But does that kind of almost give you somewhat of a inspiration?
Well, it gives me, I guess, I'm not sure. I think if I'm completely honest here, and I don't want to judge too harshly, I'm just kind of, I'm thinking to the people that I know in this town and the people that I hear on the Friday and Saturday night, because it's the loudest ones. And I kind of think that it's almost a great metaphor for a lot of people in life, that we're all lost in a way. People can be lost. And what human beings tend to do is distract ourselves with things that will pull us out of the present moment and get us to focus on something that maybe is not quite so painful. Because unfortunately for many people, life sucks. And if you can go out and get blind drunk or get wasted or get stoned or high or whatever, then maybe that's your mode for hitting that little button to say, okay, I'm checking out right now. This is my excuse to disconnect from life, because that's nothing but pain. And now I'm going into a different place here. For me, the thing that pushes me is just gratitude, and just, I realize that I am so ridiculously lucky to be doing what I'm doing at the age that I'm doing it, and the country that I'm doing, and who I'm, with, and my close circle. I'm just grateful, and I don't want to let a single moment go to waste. I think that's what really drives me, really motivates me, is just feeling like if I died tomorrow, I want to be able to say, or have people say about me, he really gave it his all. He really put everything into that. I think that really motivates me. So it kind of bums me out. It makes me sad when I see people that kind of disconnect in that way, and people that don't realize how much power they actually have. And I don't mean that to be a fake inspiration or motivation kind of thing to say. Genuinely, people have more power than they give themselves credit for. People have hopes and dreams and goals and wishes for their life that if they just applied themselves, if they just pushed, if they just kind of took the first step and really went for it, I think that the world would look like a very different place. And so whenever I hear that carrying on, and I'm talking like carrying on, we're in a rural community here. So these are people that are grinding it out, doing hard, back-breaking work day in and day out. So, hey, maybe they deserve a few beers, but I'm talking about the people that will run out the back door, smoking a joint and then screaming at the top of their lung, whatever expletive comes to to their mind, these are the sorts of people that I'm most bummed out about. And I kind of, it does remind me, it's like, you know what? You're okay, man. Keep painting.
Right. Yeah, you see it every day. I'm sure everybody that's listening has either seen this themselves or they have experienced it themselves. For me, I experienced it. That's the whole reason this podcast started, was because for me, it was, watching TV all the time to kind of check out, like you said. To know in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something, I wanted to create some output, but instead I was just, wasting my time away just with the input, because that's much easier than kind of realizing that I had something to say, that I wanted to have a place in this world. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of go through the stream of life that they're kind of set down, the course that they're set upon. And it's, go to school, get a job, work, drink on the weekends, have fun on the weekends, work, and then retire, and then maybe have some, traveling or whatever, then get to your creative passions.
Yeah.
And a lot of, it's such a shame to see. But I think a lot of people are sometimes awakened by a great piece of art that inspires them, or a podcast or a motivational speech or something that wakes them up and snaps them awake. And they have that realization that where they can kind of see where they're at and see that they're not kind of reaching to achieve their goals. And then the really hard part then is to take that first step, like you said, like to take action to actually change their lives, because they think that they're already way too far down the path, and that, one small step right now will mean nothing for, the 10 years that they've wasted, the 20 years that they've done something different. It's such a shame.
Yeah. Well, I that said, I heard it said once that everybody in their life is exactly where they're supposed to be. And even if it's something that is particularly painful or a struggle right now, because I think a lot of us, that we do check out, whether it's TV or whatever our mode is to kind of get out of that present moment, we're doing it to avoid pain, to gain pleasure. And it does take us off track and off mission, but we can get nudged back into that path, as you say, whether it's a great piece of music, art, literature, or a crisis that comes up in our life. That's something that can turn that ship around, definitely. But, you're reminding me of so much there, because when I first started teaching, the thing that struck me is I was teaching workshops in Perth in Western Australia to begin with. And I started giving demonstrations to art societies, and then I'd book out venues, and then I would teach a live workshop to about 10 to a dozen people at a time. The thing I always noticed is that everybody in my class was so much older than me, like retirement age. And I was the youngest person in the class, and I was the one teaching it. And that always struck me as really odd. And after getting to know some of these people, I realized that a lot of them had worked their entire life, and so now they had a little bit of money. And so they had money to dedicate to something that they really wanted to do. And just, I'm generalizing here, but this seemed to be the story with most of them. They either had the time, or they had the money, or they had both. What had happened is, a lot of these people had grown up in households and at a time where art was not an option for them. They would express as a child, I want to be an artist when I grow up. I want to do something creative with my life. And, oh, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to be an engineer. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to go into advertising, because we all know what happens to artists. You're going to starve to death. And so these people end up giving themselves permission to do something that they always wanted to do, now that they've reached a stage in their life where they feel like they either deserve it, or they're ready, or they have the monetary, means to be able to pursue that passion. That I found so sad. But at the same time, I was happy that they were there. And so whoever's listening to this, whatever age you may be, if there's breath in your body, get on with it. Do it now. Don't wait. Stop the bullshit excuses of, how hard it is. You can do something, just something little, just a scribble in a notebook on your bus trip to work, or on your lunch break, or go visit a gallery. Just start doing things and start, bringing these things into your life, just small steps. And then eventually I think that you can build on that. But I've been thinking about that for years since I saw this happening in my classes. I was like, where are all the young people? And this is the thing I'm so stoked about, being on social media, being on YouTube as well. I'm starting to realize through my analytics that there are tons of young people out there that are, getting in touch and also that are realizing that it's definitely a possibility that is available to them to have a real go at a creative career, to really throw themselves into something they're really passionate about. And I still get emails to this day, from people just, how do I become an artist? Oh, how am I going to tell my parents, that I want to be an artist? They want me to do this, but I want to do that. It's not something I take lightly, but I know a lot of people really, really struggle with that. This is why I'm so grateful. Like I realize how lucky I am now to have grown up in the house I grew up in, where my father was like, Andrew, you can do anything you want. What do you want to do? I said, I want to be an artist. He's like, okay, go for it. Jump in, give it all you got. And I knew it was a possibility. I knew it was something that I could do and I could do well at, because I had that example of somebody who was already doing well in their career. And so, that was really instrumental. But I know there's so many people out there that just don't have that. So this is part of my mission and my goal, and part of what makes me get out of bed in the morning is feeling like maybe I hope I don't sound too proud by saying this, but maybe I could do a little something. Maybe I can give somebody a little bit of a push. Maybe I can make somebody's day a little bit better, help them, give them a realization, give them a reason or something, and just say, hey man, he's doing it, I'm going to do it. So that's something that really does drive me.
Right. No, I think obviously I definitely co-sign. Like, I definitely agree with you that it's a great thing with technology that we're able to do with a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever, sharing inspiration, sharing strategies or whatever. But, just for everybody listening, you don't have to start a YouTube channel to encourage somebody. If you see somebody that is talking to you about, I always wanted to write a book, or I always wanted to do stand-up comedy or whatever it is, like be that one person in their life to really push them. Be that one person that like reaches out to them a month later after having like a kind of creative pep talk with them, following up and saying, hey, did you ever do that? Did you ever go to that open mic night or whatever it may be? Like, you can be that person to one other person. And I think that there's no greater gift that you can do than to be that one person in that person's life. Because I can't tell you, it's been over 320 episodes of this show.
Wow.
Over 50% of the people that I've interviewed have had that story where they loved art from a young age, they loved creativity from a young age, and for whatever reason, either they were encouraged to go a different path, but they always end up back doing the thing that they love. And what saddens me is the fact that there's so many other potential people that didn't circle back, even though they were called to go back. So I definitely co-sign with you, and I think that for people listening that are saying those two dreadful words, one day, I think those are like the two worst words that you can say, because that never comes. All it really takes is one day. Just take one day, call out of work one day, and just blast off and just get to whatever it is that you want to do. Just feel how it feels to do that thing for a day, and then compare that day to all your other days, like in the past year, and just then answer the question, like, what should I be doing?
Absolutely. Can I get a little bit? Do you mind if I get a little bit spiritual on you?
Please. We like spiritual. We like woo-woo.
A little bit woo-woo here. It's not a side of myself that I really talk about much, but and without offending anybody's personal religious or spiritual sensibilities, I got a particular worldview. I do believe in God, or a creative force of the universe, or whatever label you want to put in it. But I believe that there's a power that lies within humanity and a certain responsibility. And I don't believe that any human life is wasted. And I also believe that dreams are precious gifts. Every child's given dreams, and every adult kind of has these, and they carry them with them throughout their lives. And that is a precious gift. That dream that you're given, that thing that gnaws away at you in the back of your mind, I should be doing this. I should be putting my time, my attention here. Wouldn't it be great if I just painted a picture one day? Wouldn't it be great if I just wrote that book? Wouldn't it be great if I just picked up my guitar and just started playing some chords and just started singing those songs that are within me? That is something that's within you. That you could call it a calling, if you will, but that is given to you. I don't know. I'm not so sure myself if that is something that we generate ourselves or something that is external that is given to us when we enter this world. I like to entertain the thought that we have a sense of purpose when we're here. Like there's something that we should be doing and we should be getting on with. And that everything that comes up in your life, whether it's a negative word from a friend, a parent, or a loved one, or a school teacher telling you can't do it, or bullies or whoever, all of these things that life throws in your way, money challenges, health problems, these are challenges. These are things to move past and overcome. As Les Brown said, I'm big into my motivation, man, but as Les Brown said, if you can look up, you can get up. These are little tests that are thrown our way that just go, okay, you've stated that you want to do this. Are you sure you want to pick up the guitar and do this? Because, brand new episode of House of Cards is out. Are you sure you want to do that? Or, the latest movie's come out and, your girlfriends are calling you and they want you to go to the show. Are you sure you want to do this? Because your teacher back in high school said you're never going to make money doing that anyway. These are just tests. These are just BS tests that life throws our way to just test us to make sure that we're really on mission and really on track. So I think that our goal here, our role in humanity is to pay attention to that calling and to work bloody hard at it, to throw everything into it. Just because it's your calling, your dream, also doesn't mean you're going to be any good at it. Frequently, we can maybe lie to ourselves about how good we really are. There's work to be done. And this is why, and I've talked in the past about this on my YouTube channel, it's so important to have heroes and role models and people that you hold in high regard, that you can look at, that's almost that point on the horizon that you can aim at. You're a ship on the water, you're aiming for that point on the horizon. That's your role model. That's the direction that you're going. You're damn certain why you're going in that direction. So this is something that I think is important to keep in mind, especially for young people, that, creative professionals, young people that are just going into their paths. It's just a test. It's just a test. And, I want to, can I tell you a little story?
Please.
Okay. When I first met Dr. Demartini, Dr. Demartini, some people might remember him from The Secret. He was one of the people that was featured in the movie. They interviewed him they put in the movie about 7 minutes of Demartini, but they interviewed him for 7.5 hours. The movie completely missed the point about what he was talking about, and completely missed the philosophy that he's on. And I really resonate with what he says. I was at one of his live events, and I spoke to him, and this is when I was at a real low point in my life. I had been a professional artist for many years at that point, and it goes up and down. I mean, art's volatile, but you're going to be tested, as I said. But I spoke to him and I said, look, I really want to get some one-on-one coaching with you. And I was sitting down with him in one of our coaching sessions, and he said, what's the direction? What's the goal, Andrew? What do you want? And I said to him, and I'm going to get a little personal here, and hopefully people take this the way I intend it to sound, but I've had the dream since I was a little boy of being an artist that was remembered. I wanted my life to matter, and I wanted to mean something. I wanted to contribute to this world, and I wanted to bring more beauty out of myself and just give it to the world as a gift, and help other people as well. And I was telling him this, and I said, when people 500 years from now mention the greatest artists that have ever lived, and they're rattling off those household names on their hand, I want it to go something like, Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Van Gogh, Tischler. He's like, whoa, Okay. And I just said, I just had that in my mind. It's something, whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. Probably not. I don't know if I'm even that good, but it's something that does fuel me. But he said, you want to be a master? And I said, absolutely. I really want to master this. He said, Andrew, what's the price of mastery? And I said, well, whatever it takes. He said, that's right. Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. I tell you, I gave up everything in my life that wasn't my art and my relationship. Almost the same vow that my father said, I only have time in my life for my art and my family. And here I find myself, even though I butt heads with my dad, something chronic, I really do. He's a smart man. I feel like I'm living a very similar life and lifestyle now.
Right. It takes sometimes that, well, first of all, I completely agree with you that there is some force at play. We've talked about it on the podcast before. I'm definitely very woo-woo myself. I don't know if it's something that like true inspiration comes from the universe or God, or I sometimes like to think like when some piece of writing comes out of me that I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? I like to think it's from future me. You know what I mean? Like the fourth dimension, somehow traveling over the fourth dimension and the future me is trying to pull me along in the direction that is most beneficial to me, or the most purposeful way for me. Whatever it takes for people to get out of your own head and to realize that we do have an important role to play here, whether it's becoming a master, which takes an incredible amount of sacrifice, like you said, or just simply doing something that makes us happy, that makes us realize what's important in our lives, and help ourselves and to help the people around us to understand the world a little bit better, or to try to scratch the surface of these huge mysteries of this planet that we live on, this existence that we find ourselves in. I think both are profound realizations to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much here to talk about, but I mean, I'm not too sure how deep into that you want to go, but I
go for it. Go. Let's go.
I often find myself thinking about these things, and I try not to entertain the emotion too much, but I do find myself getting quite angry at the state of the world, and in particular, what we do to children in our society, and how we raise children, and how we educate, children. And I believe that we're slowly being prepared for factory work. We're prepared to be these cogs in a machine, and I think that's why so many people feel like they don't fit with the current paradigm. They feel like they're just going through, they're punching in, punching out, and they don't feel like they're really fulfilled within their life. And I think that this thing was set up from the get-go. I mean, I remember I really struggled in school, and I didn't want to apply myself because school was just indoctrination camp. That's all it was. And and that's all television is to me as well. It's just feeding us a bunch of garbage that robs us of our own power and our own creativity. And again, I don't want to get too conspiratorial or anything, get into conspiracy theory land or anything like that. But I feel that we could be doing a lot better. And let's say this is a system we got. This is a society we got. Now, I'm not going to be so arrogant to say that I could improve on it. I don't think I could. I'm just making an observation of how I felt as a kid. But I think that it's our role, to realize that for ourselves, but also when we see it, as you said earlier, to encourage each other to really be our most authentic selves and to live our truest, most authentic nature. I think that's the only way forward, really. I mean, we can absolutely do this. And I don't think there's ever been a better time to be an artist or a creative professional. I don't think it's ever existed. I don't think we've ever had the opportunities that are available to us right now, with social media and the internet, certainly, with, the technological advances that we've had in technology when it comes to, image making or music making. When we think about the access that we have, this should be making it easier for us to kind of get in and get stuck in. I was already a professional artist before I came to the online realm. I'd been doing it for about, 12 or 13 years by the time I started my YouTube channel. And I can't believe I didn't do it sooner, is all I can say, because it's just, it has really taken off. And it caused me to realize that, I can post a little picture on Instagram or do something on Facebook or put a video up on YouTube, and I can reach people around the world. I mean, just think about that for a second.
It's insane.
you can just, like, we take it for granted, but think about it for a second. You're sitting at your easel, you take a photo of something you just put the brushes down on, and thousands of people can then either message you or like your post or send you a comment or share it or whatever. And that just blows me away. And the power that we have and the connection that we have now to each other just means that if you are having these thoughts about doing your creative thing, man, don't wait. Don't wait. Go for it right now.
No, it's, dude, you give me chills this whole podcast, but it's so important. And you mentioned before, goals and how important goals are to you. Can you talk a little bit more about that and, what we can do to set goals for ourselves that can kind of change our course? Yeah,
sure. I think we all have goals. When I talk to, even buddies of mine, it's like, oh yeah, dude, I got goals. I'm like, okay, have you written them down? Because if you haven't written them down, then they're not worth very much. A short pencil is better than a long memory, as the saying goes. But having a place where you write these goals down and you refer to them daily is part of my ritual. Let me just run through what I do. Every year I start with a list of goals, and that does change throughout the year because I develop and I change, and what I want and what I'm shooting for does change and adapt and mold. But I'm reading that list of goals every day. And that's something that really adds fuel to my fire. And it's something that just really pushes me forward. But I have goals, not just for my career, but for every single area of my life. This might be something else that you might want to get into here, because I think it's something that a lot of creative professionals are missing. But I write goals not just for my art, but for my spiritual self, my financial self, my mental self, my relationship, I have some social goals on there. I have travel goals on there. I've got every aspect of my life that I can think of and put a bubble around. I write a list of goals for that. And so what I'm trying to do is fill up every single aspect of my life to be a fully integrated human being, to have every single cylinder firing. And so I make sure I show up and I'm present every single day with everything that I've got, because, on the goal side of things, if I just had art goals and I was just fulfilling those goals, but my relationship sucked, my marriage sucked, well, then I'm not going to be much in a mood to paint if I wasn't pouring into my relationship. Or let's say I was trying to paint, but I had this terrible pain in my side because this problem that I was neglecting in my hip, I didn't get sorted out. And so I haven't set my health goals. I haven't been focusing on my health side of things. So that takes everything out if I don't have that side of myself fully developed. And so I write goals for myself for every single aspect of my life that I can think of, and at least 5 or 6 goals for each of those areas. And that's something that really, really inspires me every single day. When I read that, I just kind of feel, damn, there's a reason here. And then I show up. So whatever I was feeling, whatever emotion or whatever, that's my reset. That's my way of getting back into a creative state. Now, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins talks a lot about state. And in particular, being able to control the state you're in, about getting out of anger and into gratitude, about getting out of hate and into love, about getting out of sad and into happy, or wherever you think you need to be in order to get the most out of the experience that you're having. He's a master with that, with his neuro-linguistic programming techniques that he uses, as well as, some of these things like goal setting and affirmations. And so that's where I learned a lot of this stuff. But it's something really, really important to me. And it's something that I can kind of test and gauge my progress against, depending on, where I'm at. I can also break down those goals and say, okay, here's my big goal for the end of the year. I want to fill that gallery up with paintings. I've just acquired a building here in the town where I live. It's a beautiful old building, 1890, and the front half of the building is empty. And by the end of the year, I want that thing full of paintings. I have never in my life, in my professional career, been able to fill a room with as many paintings as I have to do for that gallery. But I'm just ticking them off the list because I'm reading that goal, and then I break it up into manageable chunks and I go, okay, what can I do today to help me get a little closer to that goal? And I do that for every single one. Just another little quick thing that I'd throw out there for anybody writing down goals. It's really important that you state clearly two other things when you're writing a goal. Let's say you wanted to make, and let's make something crude here because everybody likes money, right? Let's say you had a goal and you want to make $1 million. Yeah, I hear yay. Let's say you want to make $1 million. Okay, great. You write down, I want to make $1 million. Okay, well, that goal might excite you, but it's not going to excite you nearly as much if you wrote down the purpose or the reason why you wanted to make that $1 million. Why do you want $1 million? Is it just so you can buy a car? Is it just so you can go on a trip? Is it so you can have financial freedom to continue to do the thing that you love? So you can put it away into investments to continue to work for you so you don't have to work? If that's the thing that you're doing, now you're a little bit closer. So you've got your goal. I want to make $1 million. I've got a reason to do it because I want to continue to live a creative, inspired life. Okay, great. Then the third thing that you're going to have to do with that is you're going to have to state clearly, how are you going to do that? Because it's all well and good to say, yeah, I'm going to make $1 million. Oh yeah? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? What strategies have you got? Who are you going to have to talk to? Who are you going to, what hands are you going to have to shake? What deals are you going to have to make? What are you going to have to invest in yourself in order for you to be ready? So you emotionally, you even deserve $1 million. Jim Rohn is a speaker that I really like. You can find a lot of his videos on YouTube. And Jim Rohn said, you need to make a goal, set a goal for yourself to make $1 million for who it will make you to achieve it. Or what it will make of you to achieve it. And I love that because he said, at the end of the goal, after I've achieved the goal and I've made the money, you can have the money because I got out of it what I needed to get. I had to make myself so much more to even get that in the bank. And, that's something that really drives me and inspires me. This is why we have goals. And I realize as well that the goals are so much more powerful when there's a sense of contribution, that you're not just doing things for yourself, you're doing things for others. And it can't be BS. You got to mean it. You got to actually live it and breathe it. You have to be here for other people. And, that's something that as soon as I realized that, things started happening within my life and in my career that I can't say. I mean, it's just been amazing since just realizing that we are here to contribute to others. That's a big part of the goal setting as well, is making a contribution, So I would give away one goal. Actually, no, I will. I will give away one goal. And this is a really personal one, but just to give you an example of something, a little financial goal for myself, because I think it's safe. My mother and father-in-law will not be listening to this, but they are Creative Push fans, but they might miss this. Might miss this episode.
Thank you for that.
They helped us when my wife and I really needed them. They showed up without any questions, and they were there, and they didn't have to do what they did for us, but I will never, as long as I live, forget what they did. And I have set the goal to not only take care of them, but to send them on the most amazing vacation that they've ever been on, because she's my mother-in-law has never even left New Zealand but to go to Australia. That's the only country she's ever been to is Australia. Now, New Zealand it's just across the pond to get over to Australia. Beautiful country, but she's wanted to travel. And my father-in-law, he used to travel for his business, but he hasn't had an opportunity. He's now in his 70s and he works like a machine every single day, stuck in his business, continuing to grind it out because that's what he has to do. And I want to be able to take care of him. So I read that goal. I know what it is. I know the reason why, because I want them to have an extraordinary life. I want them to have a level of life that they haven't known before. And it's not to give me the pride that I was able to do that for somebody. It's because I look at them, I love them so much with all my heart, and I realize how much they deserve it. They're very religious people. They're completely devoted to God. And I just, maybe this is one way that I can do something for them to give back to them for their sacrifice that they made to, their lives and their children over the years. So, and I also know how I'm going to do it. I've written a plan. I've got a detailed business plan marking out individual aspects of what happens on what date and what goes where. Not that I meet every single date, not that I meet every single deadline or target, because those people who are watching my YouTube very closely know that I might miss a week here or there, but I planned this out as meticulously as I could to know how I'm going to reach that by the end of the year. And so I think having those things, the goals, the purpose, and your how, that's something that's going to have some real power for you going forward.
Absolutely. Dude, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for everybody listening, they know that I'm a huge proponent of writing things down. And that's the great thing, though, that you said about, kind of having those daily affirmations where you're kind of checking in with your goals. You take your time to discover the why, to sort of recenter yourself. And as you discover, oh, maybe I want $1 million so that I can flaunt it or something like that, you realize that, okay, maybe this isn't such a noble goal. Or, I want 1 million Instagram followers so that I can, show it off to my high school friends or high school teacher that said that I could never. It's like kind of recentering yourself. And then once you really get down to the why something is so important to you and the specific goals that you want in your life, then you can figure out that how. And it's that daily reminder helps you to keep it at front of mind. It's one thing to set, a New Year's resolution, but then if you are getting and checking in with it every single day, checking in with all the different things that you want out of life, then that makes it so much easier because it's always at front of mind. And it's funny how so often those goals fit into each other as well. You're feeling good because you're working out, and then you're nicer to your wife or you're nicer to your wife, and that gives you inspiration to want to work out or get to your art. It's just like everything kind of molds together, and you can create that life for yourself, that perfect, the life to strive for.
No, it's really true. It's really true. I hope people know, and I really pray that people wake up to what they've got inside of them and just really push and just go for it. But we're all on this path, and I think it's just important to just take it day at a time. I mean, let's say that you've got these goals and your goal was to quit smoking, and by January 3rd, or here we are, I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday here. What's the date?
It's the 19th here, so it's the 20th there for you. Yeah.
Okay. So of February, let's say by the 21st of February, you start smoking again. Don't beat yourself up. That's the other thing as well, is that realize that we're a work in progress. As of this year, I have really changed my life and changed myself. I think a lot of people as well. I got a lot of comments on my YouTube channel where people, I'd been away for some months while I was building the studio and the gallery. I never stopped working and was doing it every day. And when I jumped back in front of the camera, people were commenting and saying, "Man, are you okay? Just tell us you're okay, because you look sick." And I had lost so much weight that I don't think people were really prepared for that. And I'm not sick at all, far from it. I'm actually the healthiest I've ever been. I was quite ill before because I was really into bodybuilding. That was something that I found was a great metaphor for my creative pursuit, and it helped me get a lot of the angst and a lot of the anger that I've been holding on to my whole life. And it might surprise some people to know, but I was a very angry dude. I still have my moments where I get caught up in the past, just like everybody else. And I relive experiences, and I just get really furious about that. And mainly it's at myself. Why did I let that happen? But that was my release, is going to the gym. And of course, going to the gym was accompanied by copious amounts of red meat and chicken and fish and eggs and protein powders and all of this. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my kidneys started to give out. And I was starting to have all sorts of health issues as a result of this excess protein consumption. And so I had to make a major lifestyle change. And I quit the bodybuilding and I quit that diet. I quit that lifestyle. And now I'm on a much more even keel, and I've got a much more healthy diet, a much more sensible regimen. But I think that sometimes you can kind of distract yourself with something that you think is a goal as well, and realize that you're not really on track. I found that a lot of my bodybuilding stuff was for me to personally overcome the bullying that I experienced back in school, and just wanting to be able to accept myself as I was a big and strong guy. I could finally accept myself. And it wasn't until very recently, recent years, that I realized, I don't need to do this anymore. This doesn't feel like a congruent goal with where I'm going spiritually. I've never in my life been in a fight or a physical altercation. I pray that never happens, but I don't feel like I need that side of myself developed. The thing that I need developed more is my art. So how can I put in more there? And the other thing I completely gave up on was media and television. So now it's not, I shouldn't say completely given up, but I watch a little bit here and there as a way to kind of zone out and chill out, maybe before I go to bed on occasion. But it's not sitting down and watching the entire series of whatever as I used to do. Because I used to be down with the shows and the movies and all that stuff. And when I think back to how much time I wasted sitting in front of the tube, like, man, the amount of work I could have gotten done. Like, think back to your life. Do you remember every episode of everything ever? And does it even matter? Does it matter what Frank Underwood did? It doesn't matter. Does it matter how season 3 of Dexter ended? Because we're all we're using it for is a distraction. We're getting caught up in another drama, so we don't have to face the drama of our own lives. And I really am starting to believe that that's what film and television was designed for. Yeah, I will sometimes catch the latest movie if I'm really excited about it. But the more I get excited about movies that are coming out nowadays, the more they just suck. Have you ever realized how bad movies suck right now?
Movies are pretty bad these days.
They're so bad. They're so bad.
And they're also just remaking everything.
Every
movie also is coming from a graphic novel or a short story collection, or everything comes from other source material anyway, and they're just remaking everything. It is tough. Movies are tough these days.
But boy, a superhero. Let's do this. I haven't seen this before.
Right, it's a lot. TV I think is a great art form in itself, but for me, it's just. Sometimes it felt like a chore, like it felt like a responsibility. Like the next show is out that everybody's talking about. Okay, got to watch it. And that's 8 hours of my life. It's like a work day, the whole season, where I could be doing creative work and doing that output. We don't have to go down that path, but I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you had, and that really surprises me too, that you had some trouble being angry or just kind of stewing over things about the past. Yeah. So would you have any advice for anybody that's listening that maybe has that same struggle of getting past past events, or just being upset and reliving their past mistakes, or something that they really have no control over, so that they can get back to their true path?
Of course. I will start off by saying, though, that I'm not an expert in this, and take this as just maybe advice from a friend. But I would recommend very highly the work of John DeMartini, Dr. DeMartini, or Tony Robbins for this sort of thing, in order to get past some of these things. Because when I think about what I went through in my life, some of it was, pretty profound, and some of it has taken me years to get over. And a lot of people these days, have similar backgrounds, whether it's there are varying degrees of pain and anger and anguish for everybody. I'm not saying I'm special or mine is any greater or any less than anybody else's. We all have our own story, but I have found some solace in some of these strategies and also learning from these people, because I really went on a search. And the way it came about was by learning a technique from DeMartini. And I'll give you the abbreviated version so I don't butcher this, but I think people really should look into his work, his books, or even, his live workshops. I will say for myself personally, it might not be for everybody, but for me personally, that was one thing that did help me make a major change in my life. It was by realizing it's not by focusing on what you don't have or what is going wrong, but focusing on what you do have and what is going right. And by seeing that sometimes in life, things happen to us that whether they're necessary or they're fated to be that way or not, they happened. That happened. So how can you use this? And when I look at that, the thing, though, that I was really most angry about growing up, I mean, you're asking me specifically about anger, is bullies at school. I got my ass kicked left, right, and center in high school. And I had a really tough time in Australia. I didn't ever experience anything like that in New Zealand. But in Australia, I did. And in high school, because I think maybe I was different and I was trying to fit in and I was trying to be a person that I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And Australian kids are big into, and at my particular school, let me just speak from my particular school, my particular situation, but it was big into hierarchy, where you fit in, what clothes you were wearing, what you were listening to, how you spoke. So for me, already being an American, with this weird accent, with a bunch of, kids that go, hey, yeah, mate, I just, I didn't fit in, and I had some friends, but I wasn't interested in what they were interested in. I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And that was really difficult for me. So the anger came when I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to fit in. I never did. And it's just like, why don't these people like me? And I think that was a big part of it as well, is because the more you try, the less it seems to work. What I should have done is just wholeheartedly embraced who I was and just say, okay, you bastards, this is who I am. Like it or lump it. If you want to hang out, cool. If you don't, cool. I'm doing my thing over here. And if I just kind of been that person. So some of that anger is also directed towards myself for allowing some of these things, the beatings to happen. And this is what pushed me into martial arts and then eventually bodybuilding. And so when I look at that, the anger is dissipated when I think about this pushed you into martial arts. Martial arts helped you develop a discipline. That discipline you can use towards your art career. Your bodybuilding also taught you a discipline where if you could show up and deadlift that amount of weight, then you can pick up the phone tomorrow and call that client that you're really nervous about calling and make that sale. You can do these things that you can put yourself up to that task, physically, so you can show up in your art career. And ultimately, all of these things that happened in my life were pushing me to be where I am today. And I think it's just a matter of paying attention and waking up to these things that happen to us and not having that be an excuse to rob us of our personal power, our personal responsibility.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And I agree that, what you said at the top, Tony Robbins is a great example of somebody to go to. And Dr. DeMartini. Actually, people can right now, or right after this episode, go and listen to your conversation with him, which was really fun to listen to and inspiring as well on your
thank you.
Your new Creative Endeavor podcast, which I think is a great title because it is an endeavor. So we'll link that up in the show notes page for people to continue that conversation.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I had a lot of fun talking to Dr. DeMartini, and I still get nervous talking to the guy. But he's an extraordinary man, and I think he's got one heck of a mission, and he's living it. But I take bits of philosophy from people here and there. It's not that I wholesale agree with everything that I've heard or everything that I've read. I'll just take something that works that I know, hey, that's a perfect jigsaw puzzle piece that I can fit into my life, and that void that is perfectly that size. Oh, look, it plugs in, click. And then that becomes part of my own personal philosophy. And I use that carrying forward. And I think, one of the things that helps me is just making sure that when I read something or listen to something, apply that. There was a guy who really, I think, got his start maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but his name's Brendan Bouchard. But I think he got his start by listening to a lot of Tony Robbins. But he was a wonderful speaker. I'm not sure if he's still doing it. I've not caught up with his work in some time. But the one thing that he said is never write a goal down or never set something for yourself up without doing something, performing an action towards its attainment. So never leave a goal without doing something towards its attainment. And I found that really, really powerful as well. So if you're going to go and research some of these names, your Tony Robbins, DeMartini, or even, somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I absolutely love, or Grant Cardone, another fantastic guy. If you're going to learn something from these, have a notebook ready. Get ready to actually put something in your diary. Get ready to actually apply something to your life at that moment. I think these sorts of things, these strategies do build a gravity and really do help you with your art, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Gary Vee's good. I love to hate that guy. He's always he's always so right though. I'm like, damn it, Gary. Yeah. And like Jordan Peterson, there's so many wonderful people that you can gain inspiration from, and kind of just like I recommend for artists or writers to do. It's like taking the best parts of the people that you're inspired by, taking those aspects and incorporating them into your art or your writing or your music or whatever it is. It's the same thing for like life philosophy, like whatever somebody is doing that seems right, that feels like it could, like you said, you could pluck it out and incorporate it into your life. Try it. It can't hurt to try it. That's so important.
I in thinking about this, when I look back on my life, I had particular characters that stood out because I was the youngest of my family as well. I think that's what really helped me develop this observer mentality within myself. I was always watching and always trying to pay attention to what was happening in other people's lives, what was working, what was not working, what could I replicate, what could I emulate, what did I like about that person, why don't I like that guy, why don't I like her, why do I like that person? And then so I started weighing these things up, but also in becoming familiar with artists' stories from the past, and this idea, this sick fantasy that we have about the starving, struggling artist. And about the most famous character I can think of is Vincent van Gogh. And there are others like Vincent. We have somebody who was completely down and out, substance abuser, alcohol, and probably a little bit insane, terrible dysfunctional relationships. What happened? But we do celebrate his art. So, hey, maybe that was all meant to be. But I look back, at some of these artist stories as well, and just kind of thinking, I wonder what would have happened if they did more to kind of develop and open up other areas within themselves, rather than just being so focused on that one thing and let everything else go to hell. Like, I don't know if I'm forming that right, but I hopefully you can see what I mean. It's like,
yeah,
by not really embracing every single area of their life and allowing things to get so out of hand, they destroyed themselves. And this is something that I keep coming back to as well. And I try to pay attention as much as I can. I think it's time for us to let go of that idea that artists need to struggle, that artists need to be miserable, that we need to channel some sort of pain that's within us. If you want pain, open your eyes, go outside and look around you. You're going to find it. It's everywhere in the world we're in today. It's everywhere. Watch the news. Learn about what's happening in Africa. Learn about what's going on in Yemen. And there's no shortage of it. And you can become really overwhelmed with it. I know I did. That's why I don't watch the news. I do not watch the news at all. And then after that, I got into, a whole bunch of conspiracy theories online and going down a rabbit hole there. I don't watch those anymore at all because it kind of robs me of my own productivity, my own joy, my own peace, and all of that stuff. I focus on what I have to focus on. But I wonder sometimes, if that's something that we've got plugged in backwards. I think it's time we dispel that myth that we need to suffer And I realize the word passion, there's an element of suffering in there, in being passionate about your creativity and your art. But I feel like I do my best, and maybe this is just for me. Maybe people won't resonate with what I'm saying here, but this is what I found personally, is that I'm doing my best when I've almost ticked off every box, represented by my life, my finances, my mental state, my physical well-being, my health, my relationship, my career, everything is, if I can make a tick in each one of those, that's when I'm actually painting my best, because that's when I'm really paying attention to what I need to be paying attention to in order to show up and continue along my mission. Nothing is pulling me off mission. And that might sound callous to some, going, okay, what do you mean? You don't care about that stuff that's going on in the world? I got an email from somebody I'd like to share with you, because it's I found it a little bit odd at the time, but she said to me, how can you sit there and paint and produce all these videos and do what you're doing? You look so happy. How can you do that when all this stuff's going on in the world? And I just said, look, I'm aware of it. People tell me, I do find out about stuff here and there. What I'm meant to know, I will know. But that's not why I'm here. I was put here to do this. And by God, I'm going to do it. And this is my mission. I'm not going to allow anybody else to pull me off mission. I think a lot of that stuff's put out into the world to distract us from who we really are. And I'm now starting to realize that more and more and more, and just realize and identify things, put a red flag up. As soon as something comes up in my life, go, oh, that's a distraction. That's getting me off my mission. I need to get back on track here. I just think that we have this idea that, just back to what I was saying, that something needs to be wrong. We need to be channeling some sort of negativity or some sort of depression, angst, anxiety, or something to create our best art. And I just don't think it's the case.
You're so on point, my friend.
Thank you. I was that coffee did the trick. That was just a decaf. Speaking of quitting addictions, that's another one I quit.
So as I was saying, we hit on so many awesome points in this. Could you please come back on the show at some point soon so we can continue this conversation?
Of course, I would absolutely love to. It's been a real blast. I'd love to.
Dude, awesome. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll get to the final push, and that's where I ask you to reach through the microphone, grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, and just give your best final words of advice and really push them to pursue their own creative passions.
Sure. I think if you take a moment and just close your eyes and breathe and focus on what's inside of you, who you really are, and where you're really going. What do you love? What would you love to see? That's the thing, and that's the voice that you need to be paying attention to. Everything that's going to come up in your life is just going to be a test to either push you in that direction or knock you off course. You need to know what's what when that's happening. You need to pay attention to those signs. But keep coming back to that voice that's within you, because I think you know what life has in store for you, and you know what you're meant to be doing. And by God, do not let anything stand in your way. Do not let anything come in the way of you and your purpose, you and your mission. You can absolutely do this. And if you feel you're at a point in your life where you're losing hope and you feel like giving up on that, then take a little piece of advice, if you don't mind. Look to somebody who is doing it, who is living as full as you can see them living. Learn more about them, learn more about their story, learn more about their life, and realize that every role model for you will provide a unique set of strategies and things that they've done within their life to achieve what they've achieved. Success leaves clues, as Tony Robbins says. And so if you just follow the clues, you can absolutely do it. And as Les Brown says, if you can look up, then you can get up. And as cheesy and as motivationally as that sounds, it's absolutely true, man. So get on with it. Turn this shit off and go and do something, will you?
Absolutely, yes. Turn this shit off. Go do your own work. Dude, thank you so much for giving us, your understanding the world and your inspiration, and hopefully people can take something from what you said today and apply it to their own lives. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. And hey, look, I didn't mean that thing about turning this off, because it's a great show. You got to keep doing it, because I love what you're doing. I mean, we need more people like you. We need people out there giving people a push, the creative push, if you will. I think it's something that we all need to have more of in this life. It has been a real blast and a real honor. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I always tell people, turn it off. I tell them the same thing. So no offense taken. And thank you so much. This was a blast.
My pleasure.
For everybody listening, you can find Andrew on his website, andrewtischler.com. That's TISCHLER.com. On YouTube, he is Andrew Tischler Art. On Instagram, he is Andrew_Tischler_artist. But don't worry, we'll have that all linked up at today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/328. And also, Andrew has on his YouTube channel tons of instructional stuff, but he also has tutorials on DVD or for download on his website as well. We'll have all of that linked up again at today's show notes page. Andrew, thanks again, man.
Excellent. My pleasure. Thank you.
Big, giant thank you once again to Andrew for coming on the show. If you enjoyed this conversation, I highly recommend you go to Andrew's YouTube channel. He has some wonderful videos already up there and many more coming. He started that podcast, like I said, The Creative Endeavor, and has had some awesome guests on there as well. So you can definitely continue the conversation over there. And I also promise that I'm going to have him back on the show because we have a lot that we still need to cover. I had a lot of questions written down that I wanted to ask him that we just didn't get enough time to talk about. But I just have to say that I completely agree with Andrew that we are all here for a purpose, that no life is wasted, that we all have a calling, and we inherently know what it is. Maybe you don't know exactly what the calling is, but you know that you have something important to do, something important to say. It doesn't have to be a change the world calling, like understanding God or the cosmos or coming up with quantum theory equations or discovering the cure for cancer. But we all have something important to say. Every single one of us, every single person listening right now. And it's binary. You either find the way to say it or you don't. You're either brave enough to go for it or you're not. So find the way to say it, whatever you do. Say what you're here to say. You know you're supposed to do it. So keep finding the way to say it. On our next episode, we have Johnny Anomaly. Johnny is a spoken word poet, author, and public speaker, and he is also the creator and host of the Creating Coping podcast. And he comes on the show next week to talk about how he took a tragedy in his life and turned that into the catalyst for him walking down a creative journey and how he used hurt and pain to produce something productive. If you want to find out more about Johnny, you can head to his Facebook or Instagram. He is Johnny Anomaly. And you can also check out the Creative Coping podcast at creativecopingpod.wordpress.com. But we'll have that all linked up again in today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/328. But that's all I've got for you today. So hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Remember that you have something important to say. So find your way to say it. And we will be here for you next week if you need that push again. I love you all so much. Have a wonderful, productive, and creative week, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.